or where is the law as far as this census is concerned when they're asking you for IDs and also your passport numbers as well? People are raising questions. They're saying this is a violation of their privacy, and those were not the questions that were also advertised, that this is what they're going to be asking from Kenyans as well. So where do we draw that demarcation line? We throw it to a panelist this morning. Let's just begin with our resident analyst, Herman Manyora. Good morning.
Morning to you, Dubai.
You've been counted?
No, I've never been counted all my life.
You've never been counted all?
Never have I seen these fellows. Not even
Even
once.
in 2009?
2009, 1999, 1969, I've never, I don't know why. Perhaps because I'm polygamous. They could come in this home when I'm in the other home. But I've never really seen them.
So you're publicly declaring that you're polygamous?
Yeah, I'm polygamous. It's not a secret. Yeah, we are Africans. Some of us are in the open, others are in hiding. But we are all polygamous. All men are polygamous.
But of course, the exercise is all men are polygamous.
Yeah.
I think that is a bit controversial. I don't know if Okongo Omogeni will agree that all men are polygamous. Even Isaac wouldn't agree with that.
I think my part, I want to go back to my house in peace, so I want to declare publicly that I have one wife.
You are like Kibaki.
So I'm not in that team of Manyora. For my part, me, I was counted on Saturday evening.
Oh, second day.
In Nyansiongo in Barabu,
Yes.
in Mira County. And I think I didn't expect the number of questions. You know, the exercise took almost 45 minutes.
Yes.
I think not less than 99 questions were posed by the guys who are doing the exercise. But nevertheless, I think I was impressed with the number of the issues they were concerned with. Though there was nothing, they want to know at what age people die, but they don't want to ask people about how they access health facilities. That was totally missing. And I think some questions were amusing, asking people in areas like Kisii whether we are doing any irrigation. And I saw some of my constituents asking me, does the government expect us to own tractors? Because they were asking people whether they own tractors.
Deba, I think because I said I talked about polygamy, I didn't respond to what you wanted me to say. I think the census is, there are two issues. Do we need a census? And if we do, what kind of census?
Yes.
I can respond to both quickly. In my thinking, we don't need a census in the 21st century. We already know how many we are. There are projections. There are people, experts who can tell us. And if we had to count, we can use the existing infrastructure we have, which is government's presence all the way up to the village in Seme, where I think Governor Yang Nyongo was born or something. They know. We can tell how many we are, and there are many ways of doing it. There are many ways, even including very scientific ones, of arriving at how many we are without doing the physical. But we live in a country where people will not miss an opportunity to make 1 billion, not 1 million these days, 1 billion. So this is just one of them. Second now, if we must have it, why can't we just keep it simple? Let's know how many we are. Let's just keep it a count. Just count people without introducing all these side issues of household surveys, if you must know, have always been done. And the guys from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, I don't like that name. I like the one which was Central Bureau of Statistics. The guys from the Statistics Department, they have done, and other people in the used to be called it Ministry of Planning, whatever it was called. They have all these household surveys. They know. Other things, including animals, you can get through the village elders. And these things are done always. Kenyans, the government knows. The government knows how many we are. The government knows how many animals we have. The government knows all these things. The government has all this information, and we need not waste money, scarce money that should buy medicine in the hospitals in Kisumu County. We should not waste that kind of money on doing something that adds no value really. Kenyans, we know how many we are. Experts can project, This is a very small population. We know ourselves. There are records of death and birth and,
But how do we account
household surveys have been
for
done.
them that have delivered at home and they've not been to maybe the nearest maternity?
Let me tell you, my friend, there is something we call common sense. I've said it on this bench, time without number. We know all these things, even mere by mere common sense. We don't need to waste time on them. Some areas in this country, if somebody went to give birth in a hospital, they ask, kwani shida ilikuwa nini? But we are moving from that gradually. We have this information in short.
All right. Let's hear from Isaac Manyora. Good morning.
Well, good morning. I think I really want to greet everyone and say that this program is very popular. And yes, I've been counted. I was actually counted at around 7 p.m. on the 24th. And for me, this means a lot. Last week, we discussed briefly. I'm very happy because the night of 24th, 25th is significant for me because in 2016, on 25th of August, is when I moved officially from ODM. And then on 25th of August, 2017, when I was gazetted officially as a Jubilee Senator. And on 25th, I can proudly say it's the first time I've been counted as a person with albinism. For me, that is really, really important. It's a 10-year struggle. And Professor Nyong'o is here, our past patron of the albinism side of Kenya. And also intersex people have also been counted. So really, question number 43, there are many questions, but it is really significant that we can count. And I'm sure there are many other people who feel included this time around. And I hope this data will be useful. And I'm happy to hear even what PS Trometrik has said, that with the use of technology, first and foremost, there will be no fake numbers. Mm-hmm. People who inflated their numbers, especially from Northeastern last time, where you have Mandera County having more people than even some of the districts in Kiambu. And it is not true at all. Mandera Central cannot have more people than Juja. It's a fabrication. And also, and having 2 men against one woman. I mean, how do they procreate? The issue is we need to use this data to also allocate resources correctly. It is not fair, for example, for Turkana County to get 10 billion when Muranga is getting 6.7 billion. It's not really unacceptable. Counties like Kisumu, like Bungoma, like Kiambu, where people are. So we hope this data can be used effectively to provide for resources. But at the same time, it also needs to explain the misnomer of, for example, where Nakuru County has got 1.6 million people, but 1.1 million voters. How do you explain that? Do you mean 500,000 people were able to produce 1.1 million? So some of those things, those contradictions within our data needs to be explained properly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right, Alice Ohome.
Thank you, Dibal. Yes, I was counted on Saturday. And I think, save for one question on irrigation, which I found to be kind of superimposed. It was coming from nowhere, whether I'm doing irrigation, whether I'm doing farming, because it didn't seem to ask me how much land I have in the first place before I can say I'm doing farming. But otherwise, I think the other question was, picking from my colleagues, is whether it is necessary. Mm-hmm. Do we need to spend that kind of money to do census? Yes, I think it is important to know what is the population of a country in terms of planning. I think for me, I would imagine that the government wants to have the exact data as it provides planning details in terms of development, in terms of resource allocation. And going forward, then we need to know every area, because when you look at the controversies that accompany the previous census, then you would understand why this particular time I'm hoping that actually we can get the correct information in terms of how many people we have in all the regions in this country. Mm-hmm. And of course, thereafter, then they should actually look and see how the distribution of resource and wealth for this country is going. Is it, is it following the population? Is it being informed? Is there any impact on those people who have maybe, more population, and are they producing, or, there are people who are basically not even working when others are working. And, when we talk about equitable distribution of resource, then we must also see where this resource is coming. And I think this data should be well taken care of. We don't want to hear other allegations and cases of inflated information, because even that can take the government back. So yes, I think the questions took a bit longer. I was surprised. I was expecting maybe the exercise would be about 15, maybe maximum 20 minutes, but it was about 45 minutes. Maybe moving forward, considering the budget, I think was, I thought we should have had more enumerators, clerks, enumerators, so that then you don't spend so much time, because you can, you know, people have been waiting since Saturday. They have been closing their businesses and going to wait for them. You know, they don't know when. I mean, the anticipation should be like, even if there is a delay within the same day, the mapping should be such that I know will be counted today. I have listened to very many complaints, you know, even on the media,
yes,
that they have, where are these people? Are they coming or they are not coming? And if they are coming, when are they coming? So I think that obviously the department, the Ministry of Interior should in future not keep people waiting. In fact, people are fairly frustrated over the exercise, and I think that is not the way to go.
So somehow they should have come up with a timetable.
With a timetable,
so that
of
people
like,
know at
because
least
you
this
see,
particular day is
which day, because
build in
every
this region.
enumerator has
Yeah.
a section of the number of households, because there was also even pre-enlisting. Even that one, again, people didn't know what it was about. Some people thought when you have enlisted, then it means you have been counted. So I think therefore, the first day they should say, I'm coming to this area, then I will move from house this to this. Yes. So,
All right.
so, yeah.
Okay, let's hear from Professor Anyang Nyong'o. Good morning.
Morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Sora.
Yeah, and also an unfortunate incident that happened in Kisumu as well. One of the enumerators
Yes, that's very sad.
was gang raped
Yeah.
late at night.
That's very unfortunate. I hope the police can get down to look into why this happened. I think this is very, very brutal. I must express my sincere sympathies and concern to the families and the young lady. I hope that this kind of thing doesn't happen again anywhere, in any form. My colleague over there shares Maseno as our common city. Now, I was counted, and I was impressed myself by the detailed questioning by the census officers. And like my sister here, they asked me how big the land was that I was cultivating. So maybe there's a difference in the question they're asking, but at least I was asked, and it was very detailed, asking all kinds of questions about what is being cultivated and so on. I personally have no problem with a census, really, because if it is going further to get data from people, because data do change from day to day. Even if some counting was done of potatoes produced in Muranga last year, if you do it today, it will be different, because some people have fallen off producing potatoes, some are doing better, and so on. So I think what we need to do is get more concerned about instrument used in the census. Is it getting the kind of data that we need associated with the population? Let us not think that a census is just about counting how many number of people that you have. As Manyora here says, this time there's a quality in the census taking. They are finding out the number of albinos, people living with albinism in Kenya. And you see, that's the first time that is done. So you cannot just go out and count only people living with albinism across the nation. It's very expensive. But it's rather use the inquiry of the census as a whole to get that kind of information. So I think that let's not be too pessimistic. Let's be much more concerned about the quality of the data being collected in a census and what use it is put to. What I do not like myself is the politicization of census before it is taken. I mean, if I listen to the lady who was counting me, the issue of ethnicity was just one of the questions. It was not the only question that was being asked. So let us not heighten emotions before a census, calling for people to move to their rural areas. Because you see, in my house there are people from Siaya and so on. If you're from Siaya and you're found in my house, your people can be counted, because that data is a Siaya data, not a Kisumu County. The only difference will be when they're reporting is that the number of people who are counted outside their counties that they say they come from. So I think Kenyans sometimes tend to be emotional about things for no reason at all. I think I'm sorry to say, but sometimes we speak with our mouths open and our minds closed. So I think that.
All right, but we flip over to page 5. I think there are these queries that are being raised there on page 5 of the Daily Nation today, and this is regarding the privacy. We can just read some of the sentiments that are attached to the page of the Daily Nation this morning. There's a sidebar story there, a head count requirements for these queries. So we just pick it also. Let me try and zoom out so that you can see it clearly. The government yesterday said the first day of the population census was successful. Let me zoom out a bit so you can see it. There you go. But it's going actually on the opposite end. I'll just read out. This is the sidebar story there. My comp is hanging. It says that Amnesty International, the third paragraph, also released statements saying Kenyans have a reason to fear since there is no law safeguarding their data. It is strange to have the identifiers requirement in the census, and while data protection in Kenya is not assured, there are several gray areas regarding whether or not to answer some of these invasive questions. And of course, they were taking special umbrage with the fact that Kenyans also are being asked, or the National Bureau of Statistics is insisting on having information like ID and passport numbers, which were not a requirement in the last 5 censuses. Real reaction?
I think the most important issue is data protection. I mean, I think these are kind of things we should talk about. The quality of data and what it's going to be put to use. That's much more important than just Christian data collected. I mean, our IDs are known anyway. When you are doing Huduma numbers, it was collected. Whenever you are signing any forms in government, they collect your ID. So in banks, your ID is there. So the availability of your ID to so many centers that collect information is there.
Yes, sir.
And you can't deny it. You know, when you're going for a case in court, you give your ID. When when you're stopped at a roadblock, you give your ID. Because it has identity. That's how you are identified. I mean, if you remember in colonial times, the first time I came across the importance of ID was here near Machakos bus stop as a high school student from 1 going to see my uncle in Bundeni in 1962, before my mom was quite cleared out of this country. We were all stopped and told to squat and put our IDs towards heaven. And I said, what's this ID? Because I didn't have it. Fortunately, I had a school uniform, so the man said, okay, you go, we don't need you. But the importance of ID those days was much more ominous as far as security was concerned. But I think the ID is known, so even if they come on a census and collect it, it has been collected in all kinds of places. So what's the problem? The most important thing here is the protection of the data. And what is it going to be? Is your privacy protected by is your privacy protected by the banks? Is your privacy protected by the police when they get your ID? Because it is your personal identification number. They should use it strictly for the purpose for which it is meant, nothing else.
All right, let's say from Herman Manyora, because we had the same issue being raised also on the Huduma number as well. And right now we can see there is a Huduma number bill, or is being proposed that should come to the floor of the House. They're trying now to create a law to try and safeguard this particular data. Now that we have all this data that was collected through the Huduma number, where is it domiciled? And on which law is it actually protecting this particular, information or data that we do have right now? So are they actually putting the cart before the horse? So now you collect the data, now you come again with a legislative framework around it as well.
You see, the bar agree with Governor Nyang'o, is that we have been reduced to numbers, and some writing under pen name George Orwell, he said you will be just numbers. It sounded crazy that time. It has come to pass. We are just numbers.
We're just numbers.
You are not known in any other way. If you are a student and you must, for example, and you wrote something, like I saw one, nobody will identify you by your name. It's strictly your number. We live in a world of numbers. Much earlier on, at some point, I don't know how many years ago, there was the beast numbers, which is in my ID, by the way, 666. Now,
Number of a beast.
Now, since I'm not in those lines, what I'm saying is, these things are there with us, like the governor says. But the important thing is, where such information can be misused or mishandled, and we have reason to believe they can be misused, mishandled, no less than a giant like Facebook has faced this kind of problem. In our last election here and elsewhere, there was a Cambridge Analytica. So we have cause to be worried. Then there are all sorts of people in business mining this data for purposes of business. And so we must make we must have laws like other countries that actually protect, but we cannot escape this idea of numbers. But just back to what I said, you see, most of these things, if you look at them, what we are doing in the census, whether we are asking for ID, then you are talking about Huduma number. Let Kenyans know, and I've said this repeatedly, many of the things government does, if not all of them, that involve money, it is rarely the need for that project. What is always at the far front? It is a money need. So when you are doing Huduma number, people are looking at the 6 billion inside. When we come to the census, we are looking at something like 18.5 billion. Since we have turned billions into thousands, that may seem to be little money. But 18 billion, if you gave Professor Governor Anyang' Nyong'o and told him, Anyang' Nyong'o, put this money on health in Kisumu County, you know it can transform Kisumu. And for 100 years to come, you walk from your house and just get a government facility there in terms of health. So it's not little money, but we have messed our money so much through stealing. So I'm saying, and I want to repeat, there isn't information that is required by this census that the government doesn't have or can't get using existing institutions in an almost free way. There isn't even one. Some of the new things my friends are touting, including Isaac Maura, about like intersex. The people you'll count as intersex are people to be found on this table if one of us is our level. And they are already there and they are already raising dust and wanting to be known they exist. But if you go in my rural area, Luombei, which is not very far from Kisumu, Anyang' Nyong'o, where I come from, around Kimbrook, you can't take the issue, you can't ask somebody, do you have an intersex in this house? People will just look at you and say, what's this man talking about? The time will come, and when that time comes, these categories of people will not only be counted and identified and given a sex gender somewhere, but they will have their full rights. Time for everything comes. But for now, I do not see any information that this census is trying to look for that is meaningful in terms of that you have to spend money to get it.
Okay, let's wind up on it as well.
I think first let's
just quick remarks from
on this issue of ID. I think the issue of ID was not is not one of those compulsory documents that you have to give to the enumerators. They were asking for the number. If you didn't have it, it was not a big issue. So I think let's not make a big issue out of it. But I think the issue that Manyora has raised, which is fairly important, is the cost. You know, we spent 18.5 billion on this exercise, and I'm told the Ethiopians are going to spend 13.5 billion.
And they are more.
And they're more, actually.
They are more. They're about 112 million. And I think even the size, Ethiopia is much bigger than Kenya. And every time we do a project in Kenya, we always find that our cost is either 2 times more or some billions above what our neighbors are spending. And I think this is one of the issues that should attract the eye of people like DCI and DPP, because this is where real corruption happens. And I want to agree with Manyora that nowadays, in this country, we just don't lose millions to corruption, we lose billions. Because somebody should be able to defend why should Ethiopia, which is just our neighboring country, spend less, and the country is bigger, the population is higher. You know, we had the same debate on the railway. They had a better, railway electric fired. Ours was almost towards analog, but we still spend much more than the Ethiopians. I think these are the questions we should concern us as Kenyans and as leaders. And then finally, Debal, I don't think we had a question dealing with intersex. I listened to all the 99 questions. Nobody asked about your intersex. I think the only question that was there is about whether you are living with albinism, but intersex it was not there. So we haven't
Isaac is trying to simroll this intersex. The intersex bill actually is on the floor of the House.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
you're the one who actually came up with the bill.
Yeah, yeah.
But how is it also?
It was not there.
Yeah, because he says he's been actually counted as an intersex. Well,
As
you say-
albinism, not intersex.
intersex. No, he said intersex and a person living with albinism.
Let me explain.
You said that.
Yes,
I heard it correctly.
Yeah, yeah. The question of intersex was under the sex when you were being asked whether you're male or female.
That is it.
Yeah, and there were 3 categories there.
There were 3 categories.
Yeah, it's male, female, then intersex. And
So you didn't see that because I haven't seen this question.
Really?
So
No, it's there.
I'm operating out of deficiency.
It's there.
But
Yeah.
and so therefore,
for sure, I don't think that question is there.
no,
Just
it's-
ask you whether you're female or male.
no,
That's
it's there, for sure, it's there.
Okay.
It's there. It's just that maybe people are shy to ask, and maybe it's also good about that now from
So
Professor-
before we move on, so if the enumerator came to you,
Yes.
did you, he asked, oh, of course, a male and a female, did you actually give a lead-on question about the intersex? What about
Yes,
the
yes,
intersex?
yes, I
You were
did.
the one actually
Yeah, prompting.
who prompted.
No. The questioner asked, male, female, or intersex.
Intersex, yes.
It was very clear.
Oh,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah,
okay, oh, it
of
was
intersex,
clear,
yeah.
okay.
And the box are there. But what we want to encourage, as Prof is saying, and Senator Mugeni, let the enumerators also not be shy. And I think, Professor Manyora, you are right. People are very shy to say some of these things. I think they feel like you will be offended. So the enumerators do not assume, because intersex people, you can't quite tell whether somebody is male or female. They may look male and yet they are not. They may look female and yet they are not. And let me just give an example. There was a time a young man called, or a young person, let me say person for the sake of this debate, called Ruth Wangoi / Ryan Muiruri. She was detained at a bank for 4 hours because they confused that she was impersonating. So I had to call the policeman, the policewoman Achieng, to release the person because of the confusion. Because most of them, they are born, and if you look at their IDs, they are different from the way they look. So it is very confusing. The numbers are not that high. It's about 1.7% of the population on average. But people should be ready to talk about it. In fact, when I first presented the petition on intersex people in the floor of the National Assembly in the 11th Parliament, where Aden Duale openly asked whether those people exist, really, there was a lot of, pandemonium. In fact, there was even a man who was there at the speaker's gallery, or a person who had lived with, as an intersex person for 50 years, but without speaking about it. So it is a time that people should speak about it. I mean, Prof will tell you, when we started the conversations around albinism, it was the same issue, the stigma and discrimination. Today, people are more, friendly. It's a virtuous circle. In fact, yesterday I had a whole article in the Standard newspaper just to explain to people, because we need to break these things and help Kenyans also to feel like they're and it's a novelty. It's the first time we are doing in Africa. Right. It has never been done before. In fact, I think it's only in Australia that I saw. So we are also taking a lead because of the constitution, the BAL, that minorities now are finding their voice. And I'm not gloating, I'm just saying a fact. I mean, when we presented our petition on the 6th of August 2009, the BAL, through Honorable Eugene Wamalwa and with the leadership of Lupita Nyong'o, say that, Professor, we were asking for 4 things in that parliament. Number 1, we were asking that we should be recognized in law. We were asking that we should have a zero rating duty-free sunscreen. We were asking to be counted in the census, and we were asking to be represented in parliament. 10 years later, all of those 4 issues have become a reality. So it just shows the powers, and it comes through this constitution. In fact, I remember in 2007, when we were writing the ODM manifesto, chapter 17 was about disability. And it said very clearly that for people to be represented, it was a constitutional issue.
Thank you.
So in short, what I'm trying to say, yes, the questions are long, but they go a very extra mile in validating Kenyans who felt disenfranchised and who then are going to count in public policy.
Thank you. Yes. Right. Allow us to take a short break. When we circle back, of course, we shall just get clarity on that, and then we move on also to other issues of the day. The division of revenue bill also is a contentious one as well. But clarity when it comes to intersex is very important, because I think also many people are misconstruing this also maybe with homosexuality and out there. So it is very good also to get it clearer from actually Honorable Isaac Manyora to make it very limpid for Kenyans to understand what intersex is all about. So don't go away, much more coming up on the other side of the break.